Hey, welcome back, guys. Roby1 here, and today, Telltale Games gets big and bad. It's my review of The Wolf Among Us, Episode 1. So I know this took a while as The Wolf Among Us, the first episode came out, I don't know, a few weeks or maybe even a month or two ago. I know it's fairly old in the sense of an episodic downloadable kind of game like this. And especially when you consider that, to my knowledge, here we are, the third week of November, the week before Thanksgiving, and I know that I think sometime before the end of the month, the second episode is expected. So that was when I finally decided I need to just get on it, download this game, download the full season pass or whatever the full pack for all 5 episodes is, and start this bad boy because I have become a huge fan of Telltale Games and how they work these licensed properties, which they have a pretty big history on. I think one of the first videos that I started posting in the last few months, I spent a lot of time talking about Walking Dead, Telltale Games' version of The Walking Dead, and how Season 2 was recently announced, and I just shit my pants with excitement over that. And that's because I loved Season 1 of The Walking Dead. It was one of the coolest and best and most emotional experiences I've ever had playing a game. And I also just love the Walking Dead universe, not so much zombies. I mean, I do love zombies, but I'm of the mindset that, yes, they're kind of played out. However, I will very happily welcome and embrace a kick-ass zombie story, be it a movie, a video game, a TV show, whatever. And that was great. So Telltale Games has proven themselves to me. And so The Wolf Among Us was getting a lot of praise and a lot of buzz, and I was very excited to finally get to it. As I just said, it took me a while, and last week I finally downloaded the sucker. It took me a day and a half to try to figure out how to get the thing to run. I was having major problems on my PC with the download and had to get a friend to come and help me kind of do some stuff that even I couldn't figure out. It was pretty intense. However, long story short, I got it running. Within just a few days, I'd gone through that first episode, which was only a few hours long, so I figured I would take some time to talk about it and kind of give my overall review. First and foremost, what I'm going to say is that it was excellent. So very good. It's part of the reason I was even just mentioning how great I think Telltale Games is and everything that they're doing right now. They just have this formula down. And when I say this formula, I mean, pretty much the exact same formula that they used for The Walking Dead. I'm sure that a lot of people are familiar with that, hopefully. But it works in a very cinematic branching kind of storyline. It's definitely less on the gameplay front and heavier on the story and the choosing the branch of the dialogues that you're going to have kind of front. Very similar to like what Mass Effect and stuff started to do. A lot of other games do it. Walking Dead does it just the best. I mean, I might even say even better than the Mass Effect games, even though I probably prefer those overall. Whatever, that's not what I'm here to talk about. Point is, they do a really good job. And The Wolf Among Us, it's interesting. It's adapting the Fables stories, and I had to do a little bit of research. I was always familiar with them, but really didn't know much about them other than that they existed as comics. I think graphic novels are comics. Can't remember the guy responsible for them, but they seem pretty cool. And now that I've delved into Telltale Games' adaptation of that in this kind of branching storyline kind of game setting, it's fantastic. It's a really, really cool story where it appears as if the world of fairy tale fables, so things like Humpty Dumpty and the Big Bad Wolf and Snow White, all sorts of stuff like that. Probably not the Cat in the Hat. What's the Cat and the Fiddle and the Silver Moon? That one. They exist in a world with regular people who are known as mundanes. Sounds vaguely familiar to how Harry Potter tends to separate folks, but we're just going to put that aside. So they live in the world with mundanes. They use these things, I think it's a charm or a spell, something called a glimmer. And what the glimmer is supposed to do is suppress your fabled nature, your true self via being some sort of fabled fairy tale character. So, of course, you're playing as the main character who happens to be the Big Bad Wolf from Red Riding Hood. And so he, in wearing or using this glimmer power, which the first episode is barely touched on. So that's kind of why I sound a little bit uneducated about it, so bear with me. But whatever he does to use or activate what a glimmer does, he just appears to be a normal man. However, he, of course, has the ability to turn himself back into the Big Bad Wolf, I guess, if pushed to that point, or if he decides to let it go or not use his glimmer, whatever that means. So, I don't know, trying to do kind of a quick review. I mean, the game is effectively better than The Walking Dead in the sense that the engine, it's definitely the same kind of engine and graphic novel kind of art style. It looks great, but it runs smoother. It looks smoother. It's a far more seamless engine. There were definitely some kind of glitchier moments with Walking Dead. Nothing anywhere close to game breaking, but they were present. And in this, it certainly runs and looks a little bit better, which is really cool. It uses I don't know, a nicer, more user-friendly kind of format when it comes to interacting with the world, moving your icons over interactable items and people that you can have conversations with. Gives you options as far as can you grab and look at something or interact with it physically? Are you just going to go look at it and study it? Are you going to go do something else with it? Stuff that The Walking Dead did, not near as much as what The Wolf Among Us is doing. And again, the interface that The Wolf Among Us uses is a little bit more intuitive, and it's just a little bit cleaner, and it's nice. Same concept, just handled a little bit better, I think. But the real crux of this game is the story that they seem to be setting up with The Wolf Among Us, following the main character, Bigby Wolf, who again is the big bad wolf. And without trying to give away too much, it's really setting up a kind of a murder story, a murder mystery. A very intriguing one, following most of the story, which involves Snow White, a character named Faith, who you learn about, their boss, who's Ichabod Crane, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, just to kind of give you an idea of the broad concepts that they're using for this game. It's really pretty fascinating. Bigby Wolf, at first, I wasn't sure how much I liked him. He was like so gruff, like so overly kind of the loner, gotta exist in my miserable life and live at home and drink my scotch when no one's around, and I'm a real tough hard ass and I won't let anybody in, but I still want to do the right things, but I'm not going to talk to anybody about it. And there were so many cliches just emanating off of him, and it's not like I hated that, but I was unimpressed by that initially. I was really just letting the story and my excitement for playing it kind of carry me through the beginning. But he actually really started to grow on me. I realized that he was a little bit deeper than they made him seem at first. Just in this first episode, this first of 5, near the end, those cliches kind of started to water down, and I mean that in the good ways. And they started to kind of go away to the point where what was left was just enhancing the character, and he became a lot more interesting, a lot more genuine, somebody that I could tell I was really going to want to care about. I can't ever imagine him getting anywhere near as compelling of a character as Lee, who you played in The Walking Dead. Lee was so fantastic, and he was more the everyman that we could all relate to. And sadly, that's not really the case with Bigby Wolf. However, especially because of the way this first episode ends, this whole big kind of action brawl sequence and an amazing story twist that just pumps you up for the second episode, he really came into his own, and I really realized that I'm going to enjoy, following along in his story, playing as him, experiencing his, wave of emotions he's definitely going to be going through. So I'm a big fan of him. There's not a whole lot of other characters except for Snow White, who you spend some time with, kind of getting to know, seeing Bigby kind of interact with, and getting an idea of how his relationships with people really are, and how he views other people and how they view him. So it's nice to have her as a character, kind of helping that side of it along. So I don't know, it's kind of tough to review this because it's almost like reviewing an incomplete game, because technically it operates on a 5-part basis. And I can definitely say that while all of the individual episodes of The Walking Dead, for example, which are now complete, of the first season, all the individual episodes were all certainly very good. But they taken individually, they just don't have the same impact as the sum of all 5 together when you've experienced the entire game. Like, to me, that was when I felt I understood The Walking Dead by Telltale Games, was when I had finished the last episode and wrapped up that story of the first season. And I have no doubt that it's going to be the same with The Wolf Among Us. However, getting the teaser of what this is going to do via the first episode and the, like I said, spoiler-free, unfucking believable ending to this first episode, which I just did not see coming, and they really work you up into it, man. It's just, for like 30 or 40 seconds, something is about to happen, and it's like a slow kind of burn to this thing, and you're like, oh my god, what is this thing really going to be? What is it going to mean? Whatever it is. And then you get a glimpse of what's happening right at the end before they cut the credits. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I screamed at my computer, y'all. I literally was like, oh my god! By myself, sitting in my living room playing this game on my PC, and I screamed at it because I screamed in shock and in surprise, like genuine surprise. Probably the kind of ending or the kind of impact and reaction they would hope to get from anyone playing the game. And I definitely fell for it hook, line, and sinker, man. And that was when I knew I'm definitely in for a treat. Trying to wrap this up a little bit in preparation for episode 2. Again, great game, great experience, and it's only setting up probably a better experience with the subsequent episodes, and then I'm hoping a really good finale. The mechanics overall are better. It's still kind of the game where you're not really doing as much controlling. They've improved the way action, quote unquote, sequences happen, though. The kind of what's the word I want to use? Like the tactile ability, the tactile movements and things you can do in the midst of action, they've improved greatly from The Walking Dead. So I do appreciate that. Using your WASD to do a lot of, inputs while things are happening and things are moving at you and you're dodging something or throwing a punch. One thing I struggle with, and this isn't really the fault of the game, one thing I struggle with is in the midst of something that's kind of a heated action moment when you have to react suddenly and, someone's like, say straggling you against a wall and you're struggling and you're going to grab something next to you and smash it against their head. So it pops into that moment where all of a sudden the mouse cursor is usable and it's this big circular thing and you have to move it on top of the head of the person who would be choking you. And if you click that within a small window, that's when he'll grab the thing and smack the guy in the head or whatever. So hopefully you guys are familiar with that and have done this stuff before in these games. So the reason I struggle with it, again, not the fault of the game, is that I happen to be remarkably colorblind, and the color that they do for these icons, the circle of the mouse icon, once it pops up, the target basically where that would be on the person's head or wherever you have to move, they're like this orange, green, red, brown color. I don't even know what they are, but they're this very kind of dim, just not vibrant color. Something that does not pop out to me, especially amidst the backdrop of, moving, very colorful comic book like environments and characters. I mean, that shit pops up and I'm like, oh God, where is it? Must find it. And you have to act so fast. So I need to find where the cursor is as fast as I can and then find the target where I need to move it over to create the event to happen that I want. And it's hard to do that so fast when I can't really see the colors. For normal people, they're probably instantly visible as soon as they pop on. I have to, in a split second, search and focus and try to find it. And it's just a big pain in the ass. However, I've been colorblind my whole life, so I'm not new to this kind of thing when it comes to gaming. It's just a shame when it gets in the way. So it's not something I can really fault the game for. It's just a handicap that I have, and I'm used to working around it. And I have been, and I will continue to do so. So that's just kind of my own little personal thing. Anyone else out there who's colorblind, you might run into the same thing if you haven't played it. And, I share your pain, as I'm sure you share mine. We have a tough life, especially when it comes to games, because they never really give a shit about us colorblind folks. So anyway, if I was to review and give a score on a 1 to 10 scale for this game, I can definitely say, even with the few nitpicking, mostly because I'm also still excited for next installments. I think that this first is probably going to be the weakest, I can tell, but it was still really good. So I'm going to go ahead and just give it a straight up 9. I really think that it's gotten me so excited for this world and these characters and for Bigby's journey and the murder mystery of what's happening and just probably tons of surprises throughout, especially the way they teased episode 2. I'm so glad that I waited this 2 months, just played it a few days ago, and now only have a week or so to wait for whenever episode 2 is supposed to come out. I wish I had the date in front of me, but I don't. So, yeah, that's my review. Great game, 9.0. Telltale, I love everything you guys do. So one final thing I just want to touch on real quick before I end this, not related to my review, but still in relation to the topic at hand, is what's really neat. If you're a fan of Telltale, like I obviously am, as you can tell by the way I've talked about The Walking Dead and, of course, my review here of The Wolf Among Us, they apparently, the rumor is, and I had to do a little bit of research before I came on air here and talked about it a little bit. It's not officially confirmed, but they apparently are going to be adapting Game of Thrones, which is pretty badass. I gotta say, while I'm not a humongous fan of the show and I've yet to read the books because I love reading, but I'm a slow reader, so I'll probably never get to that series. Sadly, I know that it's great. The show, I don't love it, but it is really damn good, and it's a fantastic property. It's a wonderful world. The characters are really, really excellent and well fleshed out and well written. And when you look at the pedigree that Telltale Games has set for itself with all these recent adaptations that they've done with great licensed properties, yeah, they would take that universe, that world of what's actually called, is it the Song of Ice and Fire? The World of Ice and Fire? I have that in front of me. But they're going to take that world and they are going to do so much with A Song of Ice and Fire. Hell yes, I was correct. Man, go me, I kick ass. So that world of A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones, they would just knock it out of the park. It's perfect for it. It's like tailor-made for them. I swear George R.R. Martin must have been thinking about that studio well before that studio existed when he first started writing the Game of Thrones, the Song of Ice and Fire novels way back, I think in the 80s, I believe. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But I know that they've been coming out for a very long time. Very large gaps between novels, I believe. So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to throw that in there because I thought that was pretty interesting news and see what you all thought. Of course, I want to know what you thought of The Wolf Among Us, the first episode, if you've played it. And I also want to know what you think about the idea of them taking over Game of Thrones. We're getting to the point where I could almost see them do any property, any story using this formula and this engine they have for these games. I don't even care what it is. So the idea of doing something like Game of Thrones, like I said, is just so very cool. Again, it is not confirmed. I think that's the big thing to pay attention to. I was reading some of the quotes, and the people reached out for comment, and they basically said we just can't comment. But it definitely seems like this is going to be right up their alley. And we know that they're working on something else. We know they've got season 2 of The Walking Dead, and we know that they're in the midst of The Wolf Among Us. But I like to think that they're expanding and they can hopefully handle 3 projects at once. How cool would that be, man? So hopefully that's what happens. So that's just a little bit of news I figured I'd throw in since it related to Telltale Games. This was something that I saw popping around the internet, I think the day before yesterday or something, was kind of the break about it. So pretty cool stuff. So again, what do you think of The Wolf Among Us? What do you think about Game of Thrones, Telltale Games, all that good stuff? Let me know in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I always love when you guys tune in, and thanks for checking it out. I'll talk to you next time.